Hello Bramford, hello everyone. Hope everyone's keeping safe and you're all well and you've had a nice weekend. So first of all, the answer to our little riddle that I told you today is water. Okay, so have a listen back to it and see if you can tell that it is water now. Okay, so I thought that I would read you a book. Obviously, haven't been able to go out to buy a book, so I'm using my Kindle, and the book I've bought is Grandpa's Great Escape by David Walliams. I've read it and it's a really lovely story about a boy who's 12 years old called Jack and his lovely relationship with his grandpa and some of the adventures that they get to go on. Okay, so I'm going to read you the prologue and probably the first chapter. Okay, I can't show you the front cover because it isn't on here, but it does have pictures in it. So let's get comfy. As you can see, I've got my cushions, got Wilf the dog, he's coming to listen as well, and got my blanket. So get yourselves all comfy like we would in the classroom and we will listen to a story for a little while. Okay. One day, Grandpa began to forget things. It was little things at first. The old man would make himself a cup of tea and forget to drink it. Before long, he would have lined up a dozen cups of cold tea on his kitchen table, or he would run a bath and forget to turn off the taps, flooding his neighbours downstairs. Or he would leave the house with the express purpose of buying a stamp, but return home with 17 boxes of cornflakes. Grandpa didn't even like cornflakes. Over time, Grandpa started to forget bigger things. What year it was, whether his long-deceased wife Peggy was alive or not. One day, he even stopped recognising his own son. Most startling of all was that Grandpa completely forgot he was an old-age pensioner. The old man had always told his little grandson Jack stories of his adventures in the Royal Air Force all those years ago in World War II. Now these stories became more and more real to him. In fact, instead of just telling these stories, he began living them out. The present faded into scratchy black and white as the past burst into glorious colour. It didn't matter where Grandpa was or what he was doing or whom he was with. In his mind, he was a dashing young pilot behind the controls of his Spitfire fighter plane. All the people in Grandpa's life found this very difficult to understand, except one person. His grandson Jack. Like all children, the boy loved to play, and it seemed to him that his grandpa was playing. Jack realised all you had to do was play too. Okay, part 1. Reach for the sky. Chapter 1. Spam a la custard. Jack was a child who was happiest alone in his bedroom. A naturally shy boy, he didn't have many friends. Instead of spending his days playing football in the park with the other kids from school, he would stay inside assembling his prized collection of model aeroplanes. His favourites were from World War II, the Lancaster bomber, the Hurricane, and of course, his grandfather's old plane, the now legendary Spitfire. On the Nazi side, he had the models of the Dornier bomber, the Junkers, and the Spitfire's deadly nemesis, the Messerschmitt. With great care, Jack would paint his model planes, then fix them to the ceiling with fishing wire. Suspended in the air, they looked like they were in the middle of a dramatic dogfight. At night, he'd stare up at them from his bunk bed and drift off to sleep, dreaming he was an RAF. There's a picture. Dreaming he was an RAF flying ace, just like his grandfather once was. The boy had kept a picture of Grandpa by his bed. He was a young man in the old black and white photograph. It was taken sometime in 1940 at the height of the Battle of Britain. Grandpa was standing proudly in his RAF uniform. In his dreams, Jack would go up, up and away, just like his grandfather had. The boy would have given everything he had, all of his past and all of his future, for one moment behind the controls of Grandpa's legendary Spitfire. In his dreams, he would be a hero. In his life, he felt like a zero. The problem was that each day was exactly the same. He would go to school every morning, do his homework every afternoon and eat his dinner in front of the television every night. If only he wasn't so shy. If only he had lots of friends. If only he could break free from his boring life. The highlight of Jack's week was Sunday. That was the day his parents would leave him with his grandfather. Before the old man had become too confused, he would take his grandson on the most magical days out. The Imperial War Museum was the place they loved to visit the most. It was not too far away, in London, and was a treasure trove of all things military. Together the pair would marvel at the old warplanes hanging from the ceiling of the great room. The legendary Spitfire was, of course, their absolute favourite. Seeing her always brought Grandpa's memories to the war flooding back. He would share these stories with his grandson, who devoured every word. On the long bus journey home, Jack would bombard the old man with hundreds and hundreds of questions. What's the fastest speed you ever went in your Spitfire? Did you ever have a parachute out? Which is the better fighter plane, the Spitfire or the Messerschmitt? Grandpa loved answering him. Often a crowd of children would gather around the old man on the top deck of the bus home to listen to these incredible tales. It was the summer of 1940, Grandpa would begin, the height of the Battle of Britain. One night I was flying my Spitfire over the English Channel. I had become separated from my squadron. My fighter plane had taken a pounding in a dogfight. Now I was limping back to base. Just then, behind me, I heard machine guns, rat-tat-tat. It was a Nazi Messerschmitt. Right on my tail. Again, rat-tat-tat. It was just two of us alone over the sea. That night would be an epic fight to the death. Grandpa enjoyed nothing more than sharing stories of his World War II adventures. Jack would listen intently. Every little detail fascinated him. Over time, the boy became something of an expert on these old fighter planes. Grandpa would tell his grandson that he would make an excellent pilot one day. This always made the boy burst with pride. Then, later in the day, if ever an old black and white war film was on the television, the pair would snuggle up on the sofa together in Grandpa's house and watch it. Reach for the Sky was one they watched over and over again. This classic told the story of a pilot who lost both his legs in a horrific accident before World War II. Despite this, Douglas Bader went on to become a legendary flying ace. Rainy Saturday afternoons were made for Reach for the Sky, or One of Our Aircraft is Missing, or The Way to the Stars, or A Matter of Life and Death. For Jack, there was nothing better. Sadly, the food at Grandpa's house was always diabolical. He called it rations, as he had during the war. The old man only ever ate food from tins. For dinner, he would select a couple at complete random from his larder and empty them into a pan together. Corned beef with pineapple chunks, sardines and rice pudding, treacle sponge with peas, baked beans mixed with tinned peaches, diced carrots in condensed milk, chocolate pudding covered in tomato soup, pilchards with spaghetti hoops, steak and kidney pudding and fruit cocktail, haggis topped with cherries in syrup, and Grandpa's speciality, spam à la custard. The use of the French words gave it an air of poshness it did not deserve. Fortunately, the boy didn't come for the food. World War II was the most important time in Grandpa's life. It was a time when brave Royal Air Force pilots like him fought for their country in the Battle of Britain. The Nazis were planning an invasion, a plot they called Operation Sea Lion. However, without being able to secure power over the skies to protect their troops on the ground, the Nazis were never able to put their plan into action. Day after day, night after night, RAF pilots like Grandpa risked their lives to keep the people of Britain free from being captured by the Nazis. So instead of reading the book to his grandson at bedtime, the old man would tell the boy of his real-life adventures during the war. His stories were more thrilling than any you could find in a book. "One more tale, Grandpa, please," the boy begged on one such night. I want to hear about when you were shot down by the Luftwaffe and had to crash land into the English Channel. It's late, young Jack, Grandpa replied. You go to sleep. I promise I will tell you that tale and plenty more in the morning. But I'll meet you in your dreams, squadron leader. And the old man, said the old man as he kissed Jack tenderly on the forehead. Squadron leader was his nickname for his grandson. I'll see you in the skies, up, up and away. Up, up and away, the boy repeated before drifting off to sleep in Grandpa's spare room, dreaming he too was a fighter pilot. Time spent with Grandpa couldn't have been more perfect, but that was all about to change. Okay, so that is the first chapter, and I'll try and do a video every day reading the next chapter. I might do a few chapters a day because some of the chapters are quite short. It's a really lovely book, so I hope you enjoyed listening. I know Wilf did. He enjoyed it, and I will speak to you soon.